Namo. Welcome once again to Kahului Hongwanji Buddhist Temple's online YouTube Sunday service. Today's service is for August 8th, 2021, and today is just our regular family service. So I hope that everyone is doing well. Really appreciate your taking the time to watch these videos and to be part of our community, even through kind of virtual way. But we hope that these are beneficial to you and give you some help in the difficulties that we all are facing during this time. So whether it is just because of just COVID itself, which can be a very terrible thing, and certainly the stresses that it brings about and the adjustments we have to make with masks and all that kind of stuff, and of course all the other great grave problems that we're facing today: drought, flood, wildfires, all kinds of things that remind us that the Buddhist teaching of karma, causes and conditions, causes and effects, is something we can't afford to ignore. We need to always reflect that we all have a part in whether life is whether we are able to create a world of well-being and happiness for ourselves and others, or make things very difficult for others and for ourselves. And of course, Buddhism is really all about self-reflection, to realize, what is my part? What am I contributing to the well-being or the unhappiness of others? So it is a time of thinking and reflection, and we always realize that even in the worst of times, life itself, each moment of life itself, is a precious gift that we need to deeply appreciate. So today we will begin our service now with the Vandana and Tisarana. We have already heard the calling bell, the Kansho, bringing us to a mindful awareness and ready to listen to the Dharma, the Buddha's teaching. After the Vandana Tisarana will be chanted first, and that is the praising the Buddha. Vandana is praising the Buddha and the Buddha's enlightenment, and then Tisarana is taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. After this, we will chant the Sutra 12 Homages, which is the English version of Junirai, and then we will have the recitation of the Golden Chain of Love. After that, I will share a Dharma message with you, some reflections on the Buddha's teaching, and then we'll chant the Metta, the loving kindness meditation, and then sing the Nembutsu. Following that, we will have some closing words and then a few announcements. So thank you again for being with us today, and let's put our hands together in Kansho and recite the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one. Bhutang saranang gacchami, dhammang saranang gacchami, sanghang saranang
I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, namanda. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Gods and men all bow in awe to Amida the revered, in Buddha's wondrous pure land. Bodhisattvas gather round, golden form like the mountain king, steadfast like the elephant's pace. Buddha's eyes like the blue lotus. Thus I bow to Amida. Buddha's form round like the moon, bright like thousand suns and moons. Buddha's voice like the nightingale. Thus I bow to Amida. Buddha's figure on Kanon's crown, adorned with wondrous features. Buddha subdues evilness. Thus I bow to Amida. Beyond compare, Amida's pure, virtue shining clear like space. All benefit from Buddha. Thus I bow to Amida. Bodhisattvas all renown, Maras to praise Amida. Primal vow made for our sake. Thus I bow to Amida. Golden ponds where lotus bloom, towers a throne of goodness. Buddha lives like the mountain king. Thus I bow to Amida. Bodhisattvas come afar, attaining true happiness. They revere the Buddha's face. Thus I bow to Amida. All life changes like the dew. We have no permanent self. Buddha teaches this law to all. Thus I bow to Amida. No evil in the pure land, and no fear of evil paths. Faithful hearts honor Buddha. Thus I bow to Amida, saving us through many ways. No tempters, no evil friends. Birth leads to enlightenment. Thus I bow to Amida. Amida, thus I have praised. Virtues boundless like the sea. These virtues shared with others. for birth into the pure land. Naman Dabu, Naman Dabu, Naman Dabu, Naman Dabu, Naman Dabu, Naman Dabu. The virtue of Amida's vow is shared equally by all, together attaining awakened mind. We are born in the land of peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu.
Golden Chain of Love. I am a link in Amida Buddha's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I must keep my link bright and strong. I will try to be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will try to think pure and beautiful thoughts, to say pure and beautiful words, and to do pure and beautiful deeds, knowing that on what I do now depends not only my happiness or unhappiness, but also that of others. May every link in Amida Buddha's golden chain of love become bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Well, welcome once again, and at this time I would like to share some thoughts about the Buddha's teaching with you. Today I would like to share some short passages from Lady Takeko Kujo, and from this book, Leaves of My Heart. And Lady Kujo is a is actually the founder of, for those in our Jodo Shinshu tradition organization, you know that the very important part of this organization has always been the Fujinkai, or now we call it the Buddhist Women's Association, although now it's pan-gender. You can, it's no longer just for women, but it's still called the Buddhist Women's Association so far. But anyway, Lady Kujo, she was she had a title like that, part of the aristocracy in Japan in the old days. But she was, so she founded the Fujinkai Buddhist Women's Association, and but she was born actually in 1887, and she was the daughter of the 21st head priest of Nishi Hongwanji, who was Abbot Myonyo. And she's a very unique person, so even though she, in those days, that kind of that kind of rank, being the Monshu, that's another name for the head priest, was really considered part of the aristocracy, kind of related to the emperor, I guess. And so you would think that she would have had a very elitist kind of education, but she didn't. She was educated together with the rich and the poor. So she had very much a deep feeling for ordinary people from an early time in her life. She was a very humble person, had a very deep spirit of humility and a very deep religious sense. And anyway, later on in her life, I won't tell her whole life story. I've done that on other occasions, and usually when we have BWA Dana Day, I usually tell her the story of her life. But together with her sister-in-law, Kazuko, she founded the BWA to help, for the purpose of helping with relief during the Russo-Japanese War. That was in 1904. And then she also founded Kyoto Women's College. And Takeko Kujo, Lady Kujo, also engaged in social work in Tokyo slums and for the cause of women. So she was really ahead of her time in that sense. During the Tokyo earthquake of 1923, she worked to help the injured and the orphaned, and she established Asoka Hospital in Tokyo. Lady Kujo wrote many beautiful poems and articles and plays, and her writings display a deep spiritual understanding and wisdom. And I would like to share a couple of passages with you now from this book, Leaves of My Heart. And you can tell I have passages marked. It's a very beautiful book. This is only part of her writings, but it's a very nice collection. It's available from the American Buddhist Study Center in New York. I'll put a link in the container below, the video in YouTube. So let me share with you, first of all, one passage. And this is from 1926. So she published, I guess, little kind of magazines or newsletters that she put a lot of her little articles in, and also books of collections were printed of her writings. But this is called Astonishment on Our Faces. And she writes, "Some people try to attract attention by showing off, doing strange things, or wearing weird clothes. This marks a new high in just how low people will go. Fools gleefully applaud themselves when they see astonishment on our faces. It gives them satisfaction to shock people, so they will use any means to do so. Every aspect of recent times is saturated with sensationalism intended to surprise others. As a result, people are being subjected to far too much stimulation. However, the way of life that continues all over the world just follows the path of ordinary people. In other words, by living an ordinary life in this age of eccentricities, it would be rather astonishing for people to awaken to their ordinary human nature, would it not?" So this passage, I think it requires a little unpacking, a little explanation. But she's really insightful, and it certainly applies to our time. It was the 1920s, even in Japan, because Japan was already industrializing, and very industrial by that time. And so all of the kind of modern, as she calls them, eccentricities, were already popular in Japan. And as you may know, of course, in America and Europe, 1920s was kind of a wild time, and often compared, often in the 1960s, all the kind of wild things that went on in the 60s were sometimes compared to the 1920s, the previous period when people were kind of going wild, and individualism and self-expression and also kind of new political ideas and stuff. A mixture of good and bad, of course, but she has a very important point here, and it's really a religious point. It's not really a social criticism that much, but she's pointing out, she says, doing strange things, wearing weird clothes. The point is, people are drawing attention to themselves just to create an effect. In other words, it's not sincere. It's not coming from inside. It's not a deep expression of something meaningful. It's just, let me see what effect I'll get, whether you will be shocked, or whether you will, praise me, or, whatever I'm doing to get that effect. And she's criticizing that in the best sense. She's observing it and saying, look what's going on here. And she says that every aspect of recent times is saturated with sensationalism, intended to surprise others. So people are subjected to far too much stimulation. And that's really true today. Look what we have, it's not just, first it was radio. Radio wasn't that much stimulation, could be, but at least it forced you to imagine and to think, But then TV, right? And then after that, now we have the internet and all of it. There's just you can spend 24 hours a day surfing the internet because there's always something else. Although, in a sense, it all becomes the same old after a while, But, there's so much that you can hook onto that what does it do? It distracts you. It keeps you from thinking about yourself, about your problems, about what's really important. It keeps you from acting. It just allows you to just sort of be drawn into a kind of a whirlwind of other people's thoughts and ideas, and just things that kind of keep you entertained and distracted, but cannot grow. You cannot grow when you're being distracted. Often, to grow, we need to endure boredom, right? We need to endure solitude, quiet, non-stimulation. So it's a very important point. To spiritually grow, we need quiet. We need to reflect, and constant looking at the internet. And then, of course, now it's social media, which is far worse than just the plain old internet. And then and all of the constant, not only one form of social media, but countless forms that people are spending every waking hour attending to on their phones and everything else. So it's not a good thing. She says far too much stimulation, and that was 1926, not now. So, but she says, however, the way of life that continues all over the world just follows the path of ordinary people. In other words, by living an ordinary life in this age of eccentricities, it would be rather astonishing for people to awaken to their ordinary human nature, would it not? So this is really the part that's not so obvious, not so hard, not so easy to understand. But she of course understands that Shinran emphasized that we have to discover our ordinary self, to awaken to our ordinary self. That is not the self that is, can think of itself, himself or herself as superior to others. That is the self full of, that has to struggle to make a living, to struggle to have enough food to eat, that has to struggle with blind passions, getting angry, desires, all kinds of troubles in life. I mean, life is very difficult. Human life is the most difficult thing, you see. And it always comes back down to that. You can hide behind all the social media you want. You can hide behind all the distractions, the movies, the television, whatever it is. Even books are, relatively speaking, books are a wonderful thing compared with all this kind of distractive technologies we have today. But of course, even books, we can hide from reality if we, just bury ourselves in study or anything else. But what we need to always realize is that we always are left with just our ordinary self and our ordinary living. It's always there, and that's what life is really about. And to realize I'm an ordinary person, just like everyone else, and everyone else's ordinary life is the real thing. That's the important thing. So, modern media, the same thing was true then. We extol and worship the people who seem larger than life, the wealthy, the rich, the movie stars, the celebrities, right? But that's not. Strip away all the veneer that we see, and they're just ordinary people too, trying to live. They're suffering even more because of the burden of putting on this false face. And of course, any kind of celebrity, any kind of public image is always a false face. That's why we should really, as Buddhists, we need to kind of renounce that kind of way of living and always be transparent, always be our true self, publicly or privately. There should be no difference between the self we display in public and the self we display privately or with our families. But to discover that true ordinary self That's the most astonishing thing she's saying. You can try to shock people all you want with weird clothes and, actions, but the most astonishing thing would be, wow, what if you just woke up to your ordinary self, your true human self? So that's a beautiful passage. And I'd like to have another one that I'd like to read to you. I can find it here. This is about religion, and it's called Those Who Shun Religion, also from 1926. A lot of these are from 1926. So, Lady Kujo writes, there are people who think having religious faith is a special state of existence. They think that if they linger around the gate of religious conviction long enough, they will be freed from suffering, have all their wishes granted, and live radiant lives in the comfort of the light. Religious conviction is not some miracle. It's not magic. Religion is not a powerful instrument of comfort and consolation. It's not. Isn't that what we mostly look to religion for? Consolation and comfort. Religious conviction is not an escape from our burdens. Rather, it comes to guide us when we are in the midst of affirming our suffering. Sadly, many people have delusions about religion. When they seek the Dharma and do not find the miraculous world they imagined, they become disappointed and blame the teaching for not being as amazing as they had expected. So that's her passage, Those Who Shun Religions. So I've often encountered that, and in myself as well. You kind of say, well, this particular path is not working out. I'm not getting anywhere. I haven't suddenly become an enlightened person, and rays of light are not pouring onto me. So I'm not going to. So I think I'll find something else. I'll change to a different path. That's what we do. It's very easy to have that mentality, but in a deeper sense, I think what she says is really important. Especially today when. So many people, especially in this country, are being sort of misled by many religious people to believe that religion is some kind of magic. That they'll get their dreams fulfilled if they if they have the right belief, and then they give money to the church and everything like that, and then they will be happy. They will have all the happiness and all the the good car and house and wealth and all that kind of stuff. And of course, that's really a delusion and really quite an astonishingly sort of depraved view of religion. No, I think what she says is absolutely the best expression I've ever heard. Religious conviction is not an escape from our burdens, not at all. Religious conviction comes to guide us when we are in the midst of affirming our suffering. So when I see that I am burdened, that human life is a burden, it's difficult. When I affirm that reality, that's life. I have to live that. I have to live that life fully. Of course, that doesn't mean to look for trouble, but it means to realize the things that, we have to work through the troubles and the struggles of life. The reality is we have to do something to put our bread on the table. We have to do something to put a roof over our heads. And it's often things that are very difficult and more difficult because of the unfairness of our society. Many societies, largely because of this sort of false belief and faith in wealth and pursuit of wealth rather than the pursuit of this ordinary life. If everyone would put their effort, how should I say, if we can change our values to value ordinary life, like she says in the other passage, to value the ordinary life of every person. There's always enough to go around. If we understand that there's always enough if we share what we have with one another, So that's a very important thing, to affirm our suffering, yes, I'm suffering, and I can appreciate the suffering of others. Life is difficult, but religion comes to shine a light on that and give meaning to that and put it in a good and true perspective. So this is a very good passage as well. And so that kind of brings us to the last passage I'd like to share with you, called Working as the Joy of Dharma. So yes, we have to struggle in this life just to live, and that's not separate from our religious life. That is our religious life. All the kinds of work we have to do, whether it's sweeping the floor at home or the work that we have to do. And of course it gives us religion, that spiritual light gives us insight into the kind of work that we ought to be doing, and allows us to have discernment, because there's certain things that we cannot do, right? And certain types of work that one has to say, no, I cannot do this. But anyway, let me read her passage, Working as the Joy of Dharma. People are born to work, she says. It is noble for every person to strive toward their given mission in life. Even a small bird works very hard. In that sense, people who do not have to do a thing to earn the warm clothes they wear and the meals they stuff themselves with should be ashamed of themselves. She's talking about the wealthy, and interestingly, of course, she comes from a wealthy family. However, when our work becomes a struggle amongst ourselves to fulfill our unlimited desires, the miserable world of discrimination arises. Let me read that again. However, when our work becomes a struggle amongst ourselves to fulfill our unlimited desires, the miserable world of discrimination arises. The tragedy of discrimination results when, in our daily lives, we forget the experience we forget to experience the working of the Dharma of joy that comes from our religious conviction. So the tragedy of discrimination results when, in our daily lives, we forget to experience the working of the Dharma of joy that comes from our religious conviction. We must constantly strive to encounter the world of purity and raise our own life to a higher, more honorable level. When we appreciate our own lives in this manner, we realize that we do not work simply because we have to, but because we cannot live without working. For that reason, the everyday life of the person who enjoys working is blessed with the joy of Dharma. So I think this is also very meaningful passage. And she is very insightful and very honest. And I think, she's kind of scolding herself a little bit here in the first paragraph, where she says, people who do not have to do a thing to earn the warm clothes they wear and meals they stuff themselves with should be ashamed of themselves. Of course, I suppose she didn't have to worry about money and buying warm clothes or food, but nevertheless, she put herself in the position of working hard to help others throughout her whole life, to make life better for others. So she was constantly aware of that reality, and she points out that our work should not be about a means to fulfill our unlimited desires. She says our blind passions. In Buddhism, we would use that term. And then what happens? That causes that is encourages us to have a judgmental, a discriminating mind. A discriminating mind is what the Buddha said in the Four Noble Truths. The attachments which cause us to suffer. So discrimination, judgmental mind, that's always saying, I want this, I prefer that, I don't like this. Always choosing what we think will make us happy. And of course, that happiness is always temporary, it never lasts, and we're always filled with disappointment and unsatisfied feeling. What do I need? What will make me happy? What should I look for now? But pure working honorably, as she puts it, for good purpose. In her case, her example was working tirelessly for that, to help others. brings us the true happiness, the joy of Dharma. We see the light of Dharma, the teaching, the Buddhist teaching working within our everyday life. And of course, the Dharma is also the working of Amida's vow. It is the great compassion that always embraces us and helps all of us just as we are, guides all of us through our ordinary life, just as we are. So that's all I'd like to share with you today. Leaves of My Heart by Lady Takeko Kujo. I hope you, if you're interested, you can get a copy of this book by contacting the American Buddhist Study Center that's in New York, or you can check with the bookstore here in Hawaii, in Honolulu, the Hongwanji Mission of Hawaii bookstore. And I believe they have copies of this too that you can order. It might even be on Amazon. I think it might actually be available from those sources, or Barnes & Noble or something like that. So you can check it out. So thank you very much for listening, and let's put our hands together now to conclude these reflections and recite the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. May all beings be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May I be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to me. May I live in peace and harmony. May my family be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May my teachers be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May my friends be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May strangers be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May my enemies be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May all beings be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo.
Namo Amida
Thank you very much for joining us today once again, and I hope that today's service, as usual, has provided something meaningful for you and helpful for you as we all together walk this path of awakening, this path of life, the precious life that we receive and that we share. Today, I have a few announcements, nothing really new. Continuing in August, now we have no services next week, August 15th, no YouTube video and no in-person service. On August 22nd, we will have our YouTube video, and we will also have in-person service at 9 a.m. in the church, in the temple here. August 29th, we will once again have no services, no YouTube and no in-person service. And then in September, we will go back to having, the next week we'll have our YouTube service again. However, as far as in-person services, we're sort of playing it by ear, week by week, month by month, because it really depends on how the COVID situation goes. So if things get worse, we have to cut back on that. If they improve and we have the all clear, then we'll eventually be back to services every week. So we'll see what happens, but we should learn by now that we can't make too many assumptions. I have one more announcement that just to put it on your calendar. Maui Hongwanji Council is sponsoring the annual Nembutsu seminar, and if conditions allow, it will be held on November 13th and 14th at Wailuku Hongwanji Mission, Wailuku Hongwanji Buddhist Temple. The speaker will be Reverend Ken Fujimoto, who was a minister with the Buddhist Churches of America. And so this is a two-day event, all day Saturday and then Sunday morning, 13th and 14th of November. So just put it tentatively on your calendar. And it's important to plan ahead with that, because they do require registration, so you'll need to contact Wailuku Hongwanji to register for that seminar, Nembutsu seminar. It's all day, day and a half of Dharma learning and also fellowship. So that's all the announcements I have today. So thank you very much once again for joining us, and let's put our hands together in Kansho and recite the Nembutsu as we close our service. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo